Terry Lieber, yeah. Hi, I'm David Huboi. I'm chairman of the Green Business Committee of the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Going Green TV. We promote environmental sustainability for future generations. On today's show, our special guest, Jenny Johnson, will be talking about community choice aggregation. And with my co-host, Shawn Novack, let's get started. Hi, Jenny. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's good to have you. And Shawn, it's always good to see you here.
Good to see you, David.
I'll give you a little background on Jenny. She's a policy analyst for the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, the office of Bruce McPherson. And she's also a district appointee to the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. You're also a board member for the Santa Cruz County Chamber of Commerce.
I am.
And a member of the Advisory Council of the Land Trust of the Santa Cruz County. And it's important to mention that Jenny was a CEO for Ecology Action for 17 years, and helped build that organization with revenue and to eventually one of the as an architect I noticed is that you renovated one of the landmark buildings in Santa Cruz, the Sentinel building, and it's now a certified LEED Gold building. Congratulations on that.
I'm very proud of that.
That's quite an achievement, I know.
I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, great. So let's begin. Maybe you can give us a little background for the viewers on what a community choice aggregation, what is that all about?
Certainly. So in essence what it is, it's state-enabled legislation that was put into law about 11 years ago that allowed cities and counties to aggregate their electricity purchasing power. And so the law has been on the books for quite a while. There have been a few regions in our state that have worked on this, and one actually has pulled it off, and we will talk about that in a moment, Marin County, and the cities therein with their partner, the city of Richmond. So they have a very interesting case study about how to do this. But essentially what it means is that we partner with our investor and utility, PG&E, to procure and perhaps generate our own electricity. And some of that can be green, it can be local, creating local jobs. So in essence, that's what it is. PG&E remains as a partner with a local CCA agency, and they do all of the billing, all the transmission, all the customer service, everything they're doing right now. They're just not procuring the electricity or generating the electricity for our community. But we haven't quite come to the conclusion yet that that's right for our region, so we'll talk about that more.
Okay, great. And the California legislation, I believe, is AB 117 at the
Correct,
time.
that is correct.
And I know I did a little history on CCAs. It actually, the first one, as I understand it, was enacted in Massachusetts in 1997 and formed a Cape Light Compact, and serves 200,000 customers. And eventually they helped install solar installations on libraries, fire stations, and schools, which was good. And then Ohio has the nation's largest CCA. It was formed in 1999 after it became state law, and it serves 500,000 customers. And with the CCA, it transformed the source of energy from coal and nuclear to a mix of natural gas and renewable powered electricity, which was
much cleaner.
Was good. Yeah.
Much cleaner.
And then California, Paul Finn, an energy advisor, drafted the CCA legislation, as you mentioned, and sponsored by Assembly person Carol Migden in 2001, and inspired climate protection efforts. CCAs have, right now in California, understanding like 40 communities are looking at, going through the process of adopting CCAs. And as you say, the one is presently in effect now is in Marin. And I remember, speaking of Marin, and I've been doing a little research on that, I think there's like 80% of the taxpayers, you can either, my understanding is you can either go along with the CCA, or you can opt out and continue to have PG&E supply the source of energy. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Marin, because that's a real world case study, which I think is really important for folks to know. There are actually 4 regions in our state that have actually formed a CCA, a local government agency, or they've embedded a CCA within an existing government agency. In Sonoma, it's at the water agency.
Interesting.
But Marin is the only one that's actually provided electricity to their customers.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk about that one for a
Sure,
moment.
okay.
So right now, Marin Energy Authority, and you can look them up on the web, they have 80% of the electricity users in the county and cities of Marin. That's 91,000 customers. They started out 3 years ago with less than 14,000 customers, so they've grown a great deal. They are now at a 50% renewable portfolio, meaning that 50% of their energy is coming from purely green, completely green resources, solar and wind and so forth. And so that's very, very exciting. And they are on rate parity with PG&E, meaning they started out 3 years ago a little bit more expensive than PG&E with a 35% renewable portfolio, and right now they're at 50% on rate parity. So they've been able to lower their rates to charge the same as PG&E, but to increase the renewable portfolio. To give you a perspective, PG&E generally provides, and in our area, about 19 to 20% renewable right now in the electricity that we're using. So it was quite a big jump from where we were at with PG&E, or where they were at, to where they started out 3 years ago at 35%, and now they're at 50%. I think the most important piece of their case, case is that you want to look at their revenues. Right now, this fiscal year, they're about to end their fiscal year at the end of April, and they are on track to pull $58 million of electricity ratepayer money away from PG&E, procuring electricity 50% green for their customers, and they are paying back all their startup loans with interest. They're getting close to debt-free, which is really terrific, and they're about to bank almost $5 million this year in surplus, even after they've serviced their debt. So the key is that if you take electricity procurement and generation into a local government agency, you can procure it more affordably, and you can provide it more affordably because you don't have dividends to pay your investors, you don't have a large overhead, you don't have federal and state taxes to pay, and so those surplus revenues can go back into the community to lower rates, to create renewable energy jobs, and so forth. So, and then you have local control over those rates and what you want to do with that money. So these are some of the benefits of forming a local CCA.
Great.
Well, let's talk about oversight a little bit. I mean, how are these different CCAs regulated, or is it done at a state level, or?
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So for Marin Energy Authority, we'll go back to their case study. They had to write a very detailed business implementation plan and had to submit it to the California Public Utilities Commission. And that's the body that regulates all the investor-owned utilities in the state, including our own PG&E. And then they had to have that plan approved by the CPUC.
So it's just the plan, but then the rates are approved locally?
The rates are approved locally. Once the initial plan is in place and the CPUC can see that the local agency can actually provide reliable energy to their customers in partnership with the investor-owned utility, then they say, yes, we approve your plan, and then the local agency can move forward. But when you want to set the rates, that is your local agency. So right now, if you're an average citizen or business, if you wanted to inform what rates would be, you'd have to travel to San Francisco to public hearings. And that's fine, those are open hearings, but this would really give you an opportunity to go to your local agency and inform whatever you use, how you procure that energy, what your rates are going to be, and so forth and so on.
And the agency would be elected people to like a board, or?
Right, and the governance is up to the cities and counties who form the Joint Powers Authority. Typically a Joint Powers Authority, we've got many of them in our region here, in Air Quality Control District and AMBAG, Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments, and so forth, and they help all of their local government partners with various environmental and planning tasks. This would be yet another JPA, and the governance structure would be left up to the cities and counties that are the members. So it could be elected officials. It also could be experts in the field. So the different cities and county councils could actually vote to approve a roster of folks who are real experts in the energy field. That's another example, but it could be elected. So, but we're not there yet. So.
But that has to be in the business plan that's approved by the PUC.
The governance structure, exactly.
Okay, all right, so there's a good structure
there. It is, and I mean, in a local agency, no matter who is serving on that board, all of those meetings are public. As a local business person or citizen, you can go and inform that process just like a city council meeting. And I'm sure it would be televised and so forth and so on. So that's sort of feels a little closer to home when it comes to
Yeah.
control.
Sure.
Well, speaking of closer to home, here in San Benito County, you know, the demographics of San Benito County is really a lot different from Marin. I know Marin, I have relatives up there, know some rolling hills, wine country, you know, and
And white wine. and
nice
green.
cars, you know, all that here. So speaking of rates and cost, let's talk a little bit more about that, because, you know, one of the reasons I was intrigued with the Green Agenda, with reading Van book, Green Collar Economy, Van Jones, is that by increasing the supply of energy, you know, with renewables, you're able to lower the cost of energy and from the reliance of fossil fuels, which would decrease the cost of goods and services and renew consumer confidence and get our economy going back again. So the price that the consumer pays for the energy is very, very, I think, very important. And I know there's startup costs involved, and I know Marin had, I think they procured a $375 million loan that they're paying off now. So ideally, you know, you would want to, since you're increasing your renewable source of energy, ideally you would want to see that cost go down, especially here in San Benito County, where, you know, you just don't have the economy that they have in Marin. So maybe, how does that work then with the rate payers and what they pay for the energy? How would that work? Is it market driven? Is it, how would you ideally you would want to see adhere to San Benito County to pay less for their electrical costs?
Well, what you want to do is you want to do a really good feasibility study. That's the stage you're in right now. And you want to analyze the different ways that potentially a local government agency would procure energy. What would be the mix of the green part of the energy? What would be the comparison of that to PG&E rates, and so forth and so on. And as you point out, Marin has a much higher per capita income than most of our region, most of the Monterey, Santa Cruz,
Sure.
and San Benito region. And we have a much higher unemployment rate and so forth. So these are the things that we really just need to take into account, the economic impacts to our ratepayers. So basically what we're right now is that we want to study what that would be, and we want to be able to say, you know, we can buy that green energy locally, here's what it would cost, here's how it would compare to PG&E. We want to be able to keep the current low-income programs that PG&E has in place. We'd want to study those, make sure those could stay in place. So this is a great deal of detail. These feasibility studies need to be really, really very detailed. You need to really have to analyze all the different scenarios so that you know what you're getting into if you choose to actually form a JPA. And so this is really the pre-step to considering forming it. Once we've done our feasibility study, then that will go back to the cities and counties who have said already that they want to participate in the study, and hopefully that will be San Benito County and your cities as well. And then that city council and that county board of supervisors looks at the economics and the environmental impacts, and then they make a decision, do their own analysis, and say, okay, does this make sense for us to move forward and borrow the money, just do the startup costs, can we pay it back with interest, can we provide those reasonable rates to our ratepayers and so forth, can we eventually lower our costs, can we create local jobs? These are the questions that we're asking now. We don't have all the answers. The really good news is, for those in San Benito, is that the county of Santa Cruz, the county of Monterey, and 5 cities, one in Monterey, the city of Seaside, and all 4 cities within Santa Cruz County have agreed by resolution to participate in this study. And we are really looking forward to having partners in San Benito County and the cities as well, and more cities from Monterey. So the more that we have participate in the study, the cost goes down of the study. And we want to be able to do a really good study so everyone has that information to see if it makes sense for our region.
Okay, well, I think let's talk about that feasibility study that you mentioned. Is it done by like a local government commission? I mean, what is it? Who does the feasibility study? Are we sure that there's no conflict of interest here?
Right. Excellent question. So yeah, no, we don't want a conflict of interest. We have formed a project development advisory committee. Every city and county that has chosen to participate has appointed an individual on that committee, And that committee is overseeing the feasibility study. And right now we're raising the money to do the feasibility study without impacting general funds, which is going to be a difficult time to do that.
It's going to be very difficult.
So we would put out an RFP, a request for proposals, for independent consultants to conduct the study. And so you want experts in the industry that would not be in conflict. That would be one of the criteria. You can get, if for any of your viewers, you can get on the Sonoma County Water Agency's website. They have an excellent feasibility study, even though it's very lengthy. It's about a 20-page executive summary, and you could get a snapshot of the types of things that we want to analyze for the study in our region. But those studies need to be very specific to each region, because as you pointed out, our weather is different than Marin, our demographics are different than Marin, our income is different than Marin. We want to make sure that what we do really matches our local information. So that's where we're very committed to doing our due diligence and making sure that we get it right.
Great. Well, speaking of income, here in San Benito County, we have a high unemployment rate.
Yes.
And I'm intrigued with the possibility or opportunities that CCAs provide our local economy and, stimulate our local jobs and create jobs. Maybe you can talk about that. How would that possibly come about?
Yeah, great question. So going again back to our real world study of Marin Energy Authority, they're again almost debt free. They're about to bank their local government agency almost $5 million in reserves and surplus. And those reserves allow you to anticipate how can we fund local energy efficiency or local renewable energy projects. And so you can take that money and you can incentivize local contractors, for example, who install solar, and give them an incentive, or property owners an incentive to install solar on their property, and that creates more jobs because you have more and more installations. So that's just one example. You can provide, for example, an interest-free loan for those property owners to put that solar on their property. And what becomes, it's especially attractive to business owners and the city and county facilities, because and schools, for example, because every single rooftop becomes a potential revenue generator. So that's exciting economically for folks, and then the private marketplace sort of creates buzz and stimulus. So you use the seed money from the local agency to stimulate those installations. Energy efficiency is another thing. That's actually the lowest hanging fruit. Generating local generation, solar and wind is great, but at the end of the day, we want to be as efficient as possible.
Sure.
So those are more programs that we can have in our built environment. For your viewers, 40% of our greenhouse gas comes from the built environment. You know that data because you're an architect. And so, and the 40% comes from vehicle miles traveled, our cars. So, in the long term, folks want to keep their cars. We're going to get greener and greener with that technology. But in the short term, talking about the next 10 years, we can really affect our greenhouse gas reduction by getting more green with our built environment. And this is the low-hanging fruit.
That's why jobs are so important, because we can keep people in the county rather than commuting outside. That would help us tremendously.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed. I had a question about the power grid and how it works, because I know, locally here, you drive through the Pacheco Pass, you see all the windmills up there. Panoche Valley, they're proposing a solar farm out there. And it just seems intuitively, if we could get our power locally, we'd also be helping out against, adding more carbons into the air. But the power grid works a little differently, doesn't it? I know. Can you give me a general idea how that works?
Yeah, well, generally speaking, what you're talking about is generating our power as close to where we're going to use it as possible.
Yes.
That's called distributed generation. And that's a very good thing, because often if you have to, your power has to travel a long distance over the grid, you can lose as much as 40% of it, and we pay for that.
Right.
So the more local that we can generate that power and use it locally, the better. Now that's one piece of the grid explanation. But in general, the way the grid works is, and this is sort of a marketplace kind of thing, if you are, this is Marin Energy Authority, they have a 50% renewable portfolio, but they are not generating that locally in their county. They are getting credits for 50% by buying green energy from elsewhere. And that green energy may or may not be actually transmitted to Marin. So again, more closer, we want it, you'll lose less in the grid, and it's going to be much more affordable, and it creates local jobs.
Great. And speaking of local jobs, and I also want to mention too, that we have AB 32 kind of over our heads there. We're supposed to reduce our carbon footprint by 20% by the year 2010. So we have this mandate, but then to follow through, and I think going back to local jobs, one of our guest on the show was Watt Electric, and they do solar installations. Is there an incentive for a property owner to now, if we went ahead and we were in a CCA program, would there be more of an incentive from a property owner to want to have solar on his roof? Speaking of net metering, is there a way that, and I understand I may be wrong, but could he get some kind of revenue from putting power back into the grid?
Absolutely. Well, the law right now requires that PG&E actually buy any excess power that we create on our rooftops. If we don't use it all, then it goes back into the grid. That they have to buy it from us, but they don't buy it from us for very much. Something like 2.5, 3 cents a kilowatt. Okay, so a local CCA could actually, in fact, incentivize folks to put it back into the grid. In Palo Alto, they have a municipal utility. They pay 14.5 cents a kilowatt. So that gives you a sense of what a CCA could do locally. They could put a higher price tag on that and give property owners an incentive to do those installations.
Wow.
It sounds like water conservation, because there's 3 tools that I use. It's either incentives,
Right.
public outreach, or regulation. So it sounds like you're using that portfolio as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, combination of you want to incentivize people, but you have some regulations in place are always really good.
Sure.
Some rules, I think that's excellent. Speaking of greenhouse gas, one thing I think is really important to mention, Marin County lowered, they are about to make their 2020 AB 32 goals in less than 3 years.
That's impressive.
Environmental Protection Agency they haven't booked that, but they
First
have been
across the finish line.
they are on track. They are on track.
All right.
Environmental Protection Agency has named them the second fastest community in the United States to lower their greenhouse gas so significantly. And all their other greenhouse gas reduction 2020 AB 32 goal programs combined, this is the one thing that made the difference.
It's
I
interesting.
was up there visiting relatives who were talking about CCAs, and they seem to be very proud. Oh yeah, we've got one in effect. Yeah.
I can see how you
Sipping
could be
a little
proud of
Chardonnay
that.
and talking about CCAs there. Well, and I also think that one of the interesting things and one of the good things about the program is that the consumer has a choice here. So it's not just a mandate. It's the opportunity for the individual to make a statement about renewable energy and
You
doing
would think
something to sustain the
competition would
environment.
drive prices down as well, since we have PG&E out there, some more competition coming in. So
It's not going to hurt.
yeah,
It's not going to hurt.
yeah.
Anytime you've got new players. But PG&E, just to be clear, if we were to move forward in our region, would be our partners still. They still maintain the grid. They do all the things they're doing right now.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like the consumer at home, they have a problem. They get a bill from the CCA, and there's an error or whatever. Would they be calling PG&E?
Yeah.
Yeah.
PG&E sends the bills. So in Marin, you only have one extra line on your PG&E bill that says Marin Energy Authority. And so they've worked out all of the bugs between PG&E and Marin Energy Authority regarding billing questions. But when it comes to, hey, there is a huge thunderstorm and I have no electricity and there's a power outage, that's the other big reason why people call PG&E.
Sure.
It's PG&E that you call. And so there's customer service lines though around billing questions for sure.
Right. Is there a website for our viewers who could, if they want to learn more about CCAs, that they can go to that you can share with the audience?
We are about to put up our own website for our feasibility study. It's not quite live yet. We will have it live soon. But they can Google Community Choice Aggregation, and there are a million websites, not a million, but there's many websites in the state and nationally. Marin Energy Authority is a wealth of information. The Local Energy Aggregation Network, LEAN, is also a wonderful website to go to for their nonprofit that helps communities put together their CCAs, or at least investigate it. And on May 15th here at CSUMB from 1 to 5, the Monterey Regional Climate Action Compact will be having their 2013 summit. It's open to the public, and CCA will be discussed at around 1:30 from Supervisor Bruce McPherson of Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. But there's some other wonderful speakers on that as well. So.
Great. Well, I'm personally intrigued by the possibilities of a CCNA for our local community here, and I really want to thank you for coming on the show today, Jenny.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
And we'd like to have you come on.
I was thinking come up in the future, maybe give us an update on how it's working across the whole state. So
As soon as San Benito says yes, they want to participate, and I'm happy to come back.
Okay.
All right.
Great. So
We'll work on it, right?
We'll
Thank
work
you
on
so
it.
much.
Okay. Thanks
Tell
again.
me how I can help.
Okay,
All right,
we'll do that.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, my
Thank you.
pleasure.
All right.
You're welcome. This is our first shoot here at these brand new studios here in Christopher High School. What do you think?
It's
Shawn,
beautiful.
Jenny?
The tools that are there,
amazing.
the tools that are available, they look so modern to me. You know, it's unbelievable.
Great staff and
Yeah.
what a beautiful
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And well, you know, when communities go forward with going green, it just shows you that, you know, it's something that's not going to go away soon. This is going to continue to be the trend of the future, and that's what this program is all about. And I want to thank everyone for watching today and having
Yes.
Jenny on our show. And hey, we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching.